This week, Spiderverse, new processors, and gaming galore.
All on Geek This Week. Hey guys, welcome back to Geek This Week. I am your host, Brogan.
And I'm your other host, X.
And just as a disclaimer before we begin, we know that E3 has already come, and we've already seen a lot of announcements for E3. Just be aware that we will be hosting a completely separate episode of E3. So before you go and get your Pokeballs in a bunch, keep an eye out for that episode where we will talk about literally everything that is covered during the E3 press conference.
This week in gaming, we did get some big bombshell announcements that may not have been covered in E3, so we're going to go over all the announcements we got. To start us off, the gaming giant Blizzard has a lot in the works for a new upcoming addition to the Diablo series. The game has not been given a name yet, but a look into the job listings on Blizzard's website shows that they're looking to hire multiple technical and environmental artists, as well as what they have listed as dungeon artists. Due to hints from BlizzCon 2017 and elsewhere, many fans expect the next Diablo release to be some kind of remake or remaster of one of the older entries in the series on a newer engine. Descriptions within all these job postings, however, suggest the creation of entirely new environments, stating things like, "The minions of hell are growing stronger," and "We are working on a new unannounced Diablo project. Come work with us and we will build something exceptional." Whether or not we've received an official announcement by now, we sure are excited for it.
Bungie has finally released information regarding the massive game-changing update that is supposed to be taking place for Destiny 2 later this year. The Forsaken update, which is due to release on September 4th of this year, is more of a trip to 2 years in the past than anything, with devs placing a heavy emphasis on having the game feel more like the first Destiny game in both gameplay and aesthetic. The update is said to feature new subclasses, weapons, enemies, environments, and a new storyline. It is also supposed to have a new raid called the Dreaming City, and a brand new game mode known as Gambit, a sort of PvEVP mode that allows players to team up to go against waves of enemies, all while trying to protect and steal earnings from competing groups. Though it all sounds good and well, it does not come without a catch, to the dismay of many Destiny fans. In order to access the new content, players must already have purchased both the Curse of Osiris and Warmind DLCs, which many consider to be lacking in decent content. And, to add insult to injury, the Forsaken expansion can only be purchased as part of an annual pass bundle, which also includes more minor content updates coming in winter 2018, as well as spring and summer of 2019. Content that honestly should probably have just been free. With Bungie having already let its fans down somewhat of a trail of disappointment over the last year or so, here's to hoping that this one finally works out.
While on the topic of DLC, the Hours of Darkness DLC for Far Cry 5 dropped on Tuesday, and it did not meet expectation. The expansion is essentially a copy and paste of Far Cry 5's gameplay on a new background, this background being Vietnam. The campaign itself, which can apparently be completed in a depressing 2 hours or less, has the player trudging through the jungle during the Vietnam War as the sole survivor of a helicopter crash. The expansion does feature similar unscripted encounters to the base game, though typically having players do things like sabotage anti-air cannons or rescue fellow soldiers from scouting parties, as opposed to fishing and saving bears. It also places much heavier emphasis on stealth mechanics rather than just running and gunning. Despite its relative short length, it is a DLC that fans of Far Cry 5 are sure to enjoy. This is also the first of 3 planned DLCs for the game, so here's hoping the others do a little better.
This week in movies, Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse finally received an official trailer filled with all kinds of comic book goodies. From art style to impacts momentarily causing words like POW to appear on the screen, even to exposition given via text bars, the new movie by Sony Entertainment is proving to use its base material as more than just inspiration. The trailer features Miles Morales, an Afro-Latino Spider-Man who's the son of a cop, who eventually meets another Spider-Man and begins training to harness his powers. The icing on the cake, however, was the appearance of Gwen Stacy as Spider-Gwen near the end of the trailer, bright blue shoes and all. Here's to hoping that our first visit to the Spider-Verse turns out to be a box office success.
In another first official trailer, it's been 5 years since Taco Tuesday, and the LEGO world is in need of a hero. The first trailer for the LEGO Movie 2, the second part, has dropped, and the LEGO world has been plunged into an apocalypse not too different from Mad Max. But when something new appears, it takes all of the master builders away on an intergalactic kidnapping. Well, almost all of them. It seems Emmett, voiced by Chris Pratt, is tasked with saving the builders and restoring some kind of post-apocalyptic order to their LEGO world. Here's hoping for at least one more Will Ferrell cameo.
In yet another reveal trailer, DreamWorks has announced How to Train Your Dragon 3: The Hidden World. The trailer features a bearded Hiccup, if only for a moment, and a love interest for the beloved dragon Toothless. This new dragon, dubbed the Light Fury, is a more feminine white version of a Night Fury, and it appears alongside the announcement of a hidden dragon world. The trailer also offers us a glimpse at why Toothless may have been one of the last Night Furies, with the villain of the series claiming he's killed every last one except for Toothless. We're definitely looking forward to seeing what hijinks Toothless and Hiccup get into this time around. We just hope that there aren't nearly as many tears as there were during How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Concept art for Avengers 4 has leaked, and it appears to show us the new team for the epic conclusion of the MCU's Phase 3. The photo surfaced online this last week and spread through Twitter like wildfire. The photo shows the surviving members of Infinity War teaming up with the likes of Ant-Man, Hawkeye, Nebula, and the ever-present Captain Marvel to take down the likes of Thanos. Alongside the group shot, it appears concept art for Thanos was also released, showing the Mad Titan himself wielding what appears to be a large, sword-like weapon alongside the Infinity Stones. Whatever the actual plot of the movie happens to be, it's still quite under wraps, but if it's anything like the comics, we've got some time traveling in our future.
This week in tech, a project based out of MIT has led to the creation of an artificial intelligence unlike any other. While most AI is fed Google images or chapters from a book to help them gain understanding of how to function, this particular AI, which was named Norman after Norman Bates from Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, was instead left to scour eerie subreddit pages to do all of its learning. After being left to its own devices for a time, Norman was then subjected to a handful of Rorschach tests alongside regular AI. As was likely anticipated, Norman gave far creepier answers than any of the other AIs, claiming it saw things like death and electrocution, where other AI saw things like wedding cakes and umbrellas. What may be the creepiest part of the whole thing is that Norman is simply a reflection of some of the darkest parts of the human psyche.
Intel has announced a brand new processor! After the release of the Intel 12-core and 18-core i9 processor chips toward the end of last year, it was difficult to imagine what could possibly be done next to improve upon them further. Well, this last week at Computex, Intel showed off a demo of their new processor, which featured an astounding 28 cores and ran at 5 GHz. With 10 cores, more than their current fastest processor, it is likely we'll be doing things in a fraction of the time. What's better is that this processor is supposed to hit shelves in the fall, so better keep your eyes peeled if you want to get your hands on one of these.
Plantronics has announced a new line of their renowned gaming headsets. The headsets will be a part of the Rig 500 Pro series and are supposed to feature an isolated inner acoustic chamber to help reduce distortion, 50mm drivers, and dual material ear cushions to help reduce background noise on top of being incredibly comfortable. For those that play primarily on consoles, the headsets will also feature the Rig Gaming Audio Dial, which allows for integrated volume control directly from wireless Xbox and PlayStation 4 controllers. The series should launch later this year with HS, HX, and esports versions, with the HS and HX versions for PS4 and Xbox One respectively at a price of $79.99, and the deluxe esports version for $149.99. Like basically everything else right now, the headsets are supposed to have a demo that takes place during the E3 showcase this week, so keep an eye out for them.
This week in science, Google has begun showing off a brand new project that fuses technology and nature. The project, termed Project Oasis, is an interactive terrarium that pairs up with Google Assistant on household smart devices to simulate what the weather is like in different parts of the world. Asking the Google Assistant what the weather is like in Los Angeles, for example, would mimic that area's climate with lights, mist, and moisture, depending on the time of day, cloud cover, and precipitation levels in Los Angeles at that given point in time. It's still in the early stages of development, but eventually users will be able to create their own biodomes, so I'm looking forward to that.
For years, scientists have been looking for an efficient means of removing CO2 from the atmosphere, and they may have just found one. Many ideas have been proposed over the years, but none were found to be terribly practical or cost-effective, most costing upwards of $1,000 just to remove 1 ton of CO2 from the air. A Canadian company, on the other hand, has designed an industrial-sized facility that is supposed to be capable of performing the same task while only costing between $94 and $232 per ton of CO2. It is estimated that this new method could remove up to 1 million tons of CO2 per year, which could in turn be converted into fuel used to power sectors of transportation, which are already cause for nearly 20% of the world's current carbon emissions. Beyond that, the same fuel could be used to create 30 million gallons of jet fuel, diesel, or gasoline. This is a huge development in the world of science and a massive step towards managing fuel consumption, so here's to hoping that it works out.
That's all we have for this week's episode of Geek This Week. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know if we missed any news down in the comments below, and be sure to tune in sometime this week for our E3 episode. But anyways,
we will catch you geeks
next week.